Jesus came to Jerusalem. It was a special week. Many people were in the city for the Passover feast. Jesus rode into the city on a young donkey. People welcomed him like a king, shouting Hosanna and waving palm branches. They laid their cloaks on the road before him. Many believed he was the promised Messiah. During that week, Jesus taught in the temple about God's kingdom and challenged the religious leaders. He knew his time was short and wanted to prepare his followers. The night before he died, Jesus shared a special meal called the Last Supper with his 12 closest disciples. He took bread, thanked God for it, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, given for you." Then Jesus took a cup of wine, thanked God for it, and shared it with his disciples, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." The disciples did not fully understand then, but they would remember his words and actions later. It was a solemn and important night. After the Last Supper, Jesus went to a garden called Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives to pray. He took Peter, James, and John with him, and asked them to stay awake and pray. Jesus was very troubled, knowing what was about to happen. He prayed to God, asking if there was any other way, but ultimately submitted to God's will. While he prayed, his disciples fell asleep. Then Judas Iscariot arrived with a group of soldiers and temple guards. Judas had arranged a signal. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Judas walked up to Jesus, greeted him, and kissed him. The soldiers then seized Jesus and arrested him. Peter tried to defend Jesus by cutting off a man's ear, but Jesus stopped him and healed the man's ear. Jesus said that this had to happen as part of God's plan. After his arrest, Jesus was taken to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. Many Jewish leaders gathered there, including members of the Sanhedrin. They wanted to find reasons to condemn Jesus and held a trial during the night. Many false witnesses came forward, but their stories did not agree. Finally, Caiaphas asked Jesus directly if he was the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One. Jesus answered, "I am," and said they would see him sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. The high priest tore his clothes and accused Jesus of blasphemy, a serious crime. The council agreed that Jesus deserved to die. They mocked him, spat on him, and hit him. Meanwhile, Peter was outside in the courtyard. A servant girl saw him and said, "You also were with Jesus of Galilee." Peter denied it, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." He denied Jesus 2 more times, and then a rooster crowed. Peter remembered Jesus' words and wept bitterly. Early in the morning, the Jewish leaders took Jesus to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea. They needed Pilate to condemn Jesus because only Roman authorities had the power to execute. They told Pilate that Jesus was a troublemaker who opposed paying taxes to Caesar and claimed to be a king. Pilate questioned Jesus, who replied, "You have said so," and explained that his kingdom was not of this world. Pilate found no basis for a charge against Jesus and tried to release him. It was a custom at Passover for the governor to release one prisoner chosen by the crowd. Pilate offered them a choice between Jesus and Barabbas, a notorious prisoner. The chief priests persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas. They shouted, "Release Barabbas and crucify him," when Pilate asked what to do with Jesus. Pilate saw a riot was starting, so he washed his hands in front of the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. It is your responsibility." Then he released Barabbas and had Jesus flogged before handing him over to be crucified. After Pilate condemned Jesus, the Roman soldiers took charge. They took Jesus into the governor's palace, stripped off his clothes, and put a scarlet robe on him to mock him as a king. They twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head, put a staff in his right hand, and knelt before him, mocking him. They said, "Hail, King of the Jews!" spat on him and struck him on the head repeatedly. After mocking him, they led him away to be crucified. Jesus was forced to carry his own cross through the streets of Jerusalem. He was weak from the flogging and abuse and stumbled and fell. The soldiers compelled a man from the crowd, Simon of Cyrene, to help carry the cross. A large number of people followed Jesus, including many women who were mourning and wailing for him. Jesus told them not to weep for him but for themselves and their children, speaking of difficult times to come for Jerusalem. Finally, they reached the place of crucifixion called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. At Golgotha, the soldiers prepared for the crucifixion. They offered Jesus wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. They crucified him, nailing his hands and feet to the cross and raising it upright. They also crucified 2 criminals with him, one on his right and the other on his left. Pilate had a notice fastened to the cross above Jesus' head that read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many people could read it, and the Jewish chief priests objected, but Pilate refused to change it. People who passed by hurled insults at Jesus, and the chief priests, teachers of the law, and elders mocked him. Even the criminals crucified with him taunted him. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over the whole land. Around 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," meaning, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Some bystanders misunderstood and thought he was calling for Elijah. Then, Jesus cried out again with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit, and it is finished." He bowed his head and gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and rocks split. The death of Jesus on the cross is central to Christian faith. It was not just a tragic end for a good man, it was a purposeful sacrifice. Jesus spoke of giving his life as a ransom for many, meaning his death paid a price to set people free from sin and its consequences. This is a core belief, showing God's incredible love for humanity. Jesus' death fulfilled what was written in the Jewish scriptures about a suffering servant bearing the sins of others. Christians see Jesus as this promised servant. His death established a new covenant between God and people, symbolized by the bread and wine at the Last Supper. Through his death, Jesus confronted the powers of evil and sin, conquering through suffering and obedience. It seemed like a defeat, but Christians believe it was a victory over death itself. His death was not the final word. The story continues with his resurrection. The cross is where the decisive battle was fought, showing the depth of God's plan to heal a broken world. For Christians, the cross is a symbol of God's immense love, forgiveness, and new life. Jesus' death was the ultimate expression of God's plan to bring people back to himself. It invites everyone to believe and accept this gift of salvation. It is the foundation of hope for reconciliation with God and eternal life. This is the heart of the Christian message.